I'm hopping on. If you see me now, if you see me later, good to see everyone either way. Normally, the Edgar Cayce Life Skills Studies is Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but I kind of just realized this morning that I have something else going on at 2 o'clock. So I am hopping on because there's a lot to cover. A lot to cover. So, yeah, there's a lot to cover. So I'm hoping I can get through it all. I am Courtney, host of Stars of the Morning Light. Thank you for being here. If you're new to the channel, there's a lot that goes on here. So, hit that subscribe button, ring my bell. Whoa, good morning. Good morning, Miss Robin. Hi. Yeah, I have to kind of get through this because I just realized my day. So, and I do want to tell everybody, good morning, Miss Lori. I do want to tell everyone also, this weekend I'm teaching a 2-day workshop. So my Sunday at 2 p.m. is not going to be happening. So what I believe I'm going to do is Friday morning, what is usually the Emerald Tablets, I'm going to use that as time slot for the weekly message because I'll be missing the weekend entirely. I'm teaching a 2-day workshop. A 2-day workshop. There we go. I got my words going. Okay. So, we started Edgar Cayce last time, and it was really good. I loved it. It was fun. I'm going to kind of go back from what we said a little bit before, and then I'm going to bring it into what we're talking about today. And today there's a lot. There's a lot of stuff that, from the brain to his early childhood to a lot of things, to then going into the secret self again. So, I had mentioned that his father, Leslie, was kind of a drunk, right? And we know, yeah, he is. He was also, his grandfather, Tom, somewhat had a drinking problem, but he wasn't like a mean drunk. He was a kind of a jolly or quiet drunk at times, so he liked his bourbon. We get it, right? But his father, Edgar's father, Leslie, could be a very mean drunk. I also talked about how he, liked the get-rich-quick schemes. He also chased women. His father had issues. So I'm backing it up to that. I'm backing it up to his father, Leslie, who was the second born son in the Cayce line that came down, or Cayce line, I'm sorry. And he married a major. Remember, the Cayces had a bunch of acres, the majors had a bunch of acres, right? Well, Leslie married a major, Carrie, who was a beautiful, I'm going to move my camera just a bit, a beautiful, tall, for that time period, lovely woman. Most people just thought she was beautiful and kind, and her family, the Majors, kind of were like, oh, you're marrying Leslie? Because he already had a reputation, and he was a piss poor farmer. Because he was, like we said in the last one, he was that one that didn't really want anything to do with farming. And we're going to talk a little bit again as to maybe why. Good morning, Miss Jackie. So he marries this beautiful woman named Carrie, who grew up wealthy. Her family, the Majors, were not exactly the same as the Cayces, but still semi-similar, right? But she grew up with servants, with a woman of that time that everything's kind of taken care of for you. She went on to higher education more. Back then it would have been, I can't think of the word, the schools where, the women get more education, but they also get to learn how to be a woman, I guess. I can't think of the word right now. If anybody can, think of it. Leslie only went to 8th grade. He didn't get the kind of finishing school. Thank you. Thank you, Robin. I couldn't think of the word. So she did have more education. She was raised differently. Leslie got to like 8th grade, and that was about where he stopped. Well, they get married, and that means Leslie inherited from her land. So remember, guys, it used to be, how many cows, how much land, agreements being made. And he inherited then 166 acres from the Major's property because she was the first female. That's a lot of land. They get married. He is a horrible farmer. Supposedly, he's a horrible farmer because of this very odd. This is very odd. I'm going to break this down as best as I can. Snakes were attracted to him, and he hated snakes. All snakes. No matter if it was a water moccasin that's dangerous or a little garden snake. Supposedly, if Leslie kind of just even was standing in one spot for longer than a few minutes, a snake would then crawl up his leg, his pant leg. If he put his hands on the earth, all of a sudden snakes are crawling over his hands. This is the excuse he used as to why he would be drinking, because all of a sudden a snake would come into his presence and he would have to take a shot. And the whole family, all the Cayces said this was a thing. Like, they all witnessed it numerous times since he was a child, that snakes were just very attracted to Leslie. I don't really know what to say about that. I'm just going to kind of roll with it as to I don't really know what to say about that. But he used that often as his excuse to be drinking so much because he wanted to calm his nerves after snakes wanted to come to him. They never harmed him. They were just very attracted to Leslie. And do with that as you may. I'm going to keep going. So that was also his reason for not really wanting to farm, not being good at farming, not wanting to go anywhere near that. So about a year after they got married, she conceived on Christmas Eve their first child, a little girl. Leslie apparently was extremely drunk that night. Extremely drunk, and for some reason angry. It might be because it was a girl. We don't know. But apparently, that little baby girl who seemed to be born perfectly fine, by the next day had passed. She died. No one really knows what happened, but they do comment in the family about the excessive, belligerent, drunk father that night. So you may speculate as you would like. So their first child did pass within a day, and this was at Christmas. Soon after that, Carrie and Leslie, because he was a poor farmer and businessman, and I do want to make note that he was also one of those guys who, especially back then, of course, even though his wife has more education, even though his wife, it's really her land, would not allow her to make any decisions for the house, for the home, for the land, for children, for anything. So he continuously made bad decisions and didn't work the land appropriately. So shortly after losing their first child, they also went bankrupt and lost the land. So you can just imagine this poor unfortunate woman, right? Who also, her husband, let me remind you, every night is out chasing women and gambling and causing a ruckus. And she came from a very prominent family in that area. Well, after they lost the land, then they went and lived in like a 2-bedroom apartment behind the Beverly store. The Beverly store, I believe, was also owned by the Cayce family. You know, once you have like a majority of the crops and you are also running mills and you're doing this, you kind of end up owning other aspects in a town, right? So other businesses. So they moved into this 2-bedroom apartment. And remember, this woman, she never had to do the cooking, the cleaning, the this, the that. She wasn't raised that way. And then not only did she lose the land and the farmhouse attached to that land and maybe some of the workers of that, she is now in a 2-bedroom apartment trying to handle life. After she also just lost her child on Christmas. So you can just imagine what life was like for her. Well, eventually, Leslie was able to start managing that store. They kind of gave like, okay, you clearly can't be a farmer. You clearly have issues, right? Why don't you manage this store? And Leslie was able to sell some stuff too, like, you know, because he didn't want to be there all the time, quote unquote. So she would also be able to help with the store some. So I think that maybe gave her a little bit more empowerment again. And about a year after that transition, Edgar was born. Now, Edgar, remember, is named Edgar Jr. after the first brother of the Cayce family. Remember, it was Edgar and then Lancey. And then, you know, some others. There were 7 siblings. Well, you got to kind of do what you want with this too, guys. Edgar was named Edgar Jr., not because he's a junior from Elsie, from Elsie. Clearly that's not the case. But to distinguish Edgar, the one that we are focusing on, from his uncle, who apparently would frequent the house a lot. So we're going to do what we want with that, right? We're going to just put that right there and say, okay, she just went through all this trauma because of this man she married. The eldest brother of that family seems to frequent the house a lot. And then the child she has is named after that uncle, and they're going to throw Junior on him to just put some distance, or do what you want. It is funny because at least in this biography, they will say that Leslie clearly, they did it in a very great way of how to write it, but they did say clearly he was not paying attention to much because Edgar's eyes were extremely blue when he was born and then slowly changed over time. That if he had been paying attention, the eyes would have maybe given away what was going on. So I'm just saying, you know, things happen. Things happen. We all know. Do what you want with that. So, but that lovely woman, you know what? No judgment here. So we have a lot going on. They continued to live in that 2-bedroom apartment behind this store. And right next door was the doctor that helped her birth the remaining children that she has. This is why I brought up, Edgar did often spend time with grandparents and or other older people. That will come up more probably next week. Because I would like to start talking about more of his very younger years, from birth to like the age of 3. So Edgar Cayce Jr., Edgar Cayce Jr., who is apparently a junior. Oh, I love it. Gotta love the stories. Was born Sunday, March 18th, 1877, at 3:20 p.m. As a baby, he cried and cried and cried until one of their servants realized what was going on, and his mother's breast milk was not working correctly, and it was actually filling up in his chest, his breast glands. So that servant, this is old school, right? 1877, punctured holes in his breasts as a boy and kind of milked all of that out. The glands and the hormones were not working together. They were not doing what they were supposed to be doing. And the pain on this baby had him crying excessively. Once that happened, and this is a thing, this still can happen today. Okay, it still can. Once the midwife and the servant knew what to do, and they released that pressure off of him, supposedly he was a very jolly baby, loved being around people, never really cried. He was just a very jolly baby after that. He had a few different accidents though, and this is kind of more the age and the accidents and brain is where I want to go with today, and then we're going to go into our other reading. So thank you all for being here. It's nice that you're here. Thank you. This was kind of an impromptu. Remember, I do normally want to do this on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I just remembered this morning I have something else going on. So thank you. So by the time he's 3, and one of these accidents, the first one was just like maybe a little bit right before he was 3. Well, actually, I'm going to go back. Sorry, I apologize. Let's go back to when he was crawling. So this is standard age. He's crawling. Everybody kind of walks at a different time. I literally walked on my very first birthday. My very first. I went, okay, been here for a year. I'm going to start walking. Prior to that, if I was crawling, you couldn't catch up with me. I mean, it was a thing. I just did it everywhere. I was on the move. Same was Cayce. Cayce was on the move. So when he was crawling, to the point that his dad came home, closed up the shop for lunch, went into the apartment, that also had like a back porch area, and had lunch, played with Cayce a little bit, or played with Edgar, I should say, a little bit. And then his father was leaving to go back to the store, and Cayce crawling, nobody noticed that he actually crawled onto the porch, fell off the porch, and it was raining outside, and the gutter was pouring water on him. Now, this is a baby. I mean, we're going to assume somewhere around the age of 8 months to a year, maybe year and a half, depending. Water from the gutter is now, he's trapped. He's being whitewashed. He's just water. And of course, then the mother heard something, Carrie did, and she ran out and rescued him. That's his first accident of probably hit his head and then water. Basically drowning him, right? That's his first one. Well, then at 3 years old, he had 2 separate accidents. Both of them that would be enough for a kid. One of them, he could walk by now. He was doing his thing. He's playing outside. and he fell on a fence post that had a nail that they say did puncture through the cranium to the brain. And his father was nearby, immediately ran to his son, took the nail out, pressure. The mom was right behind, Carrie's right behind. Supposedly they poured turpentine, however you want to say it, turpentine, into the wound. I don't know. That's probably because if it was a rusty nail back in the day, you would do that. And not knowing how deep it went, but they are, after looking at how big the nail was, right, they realized, oh, that did puncture this baby's brain most likely. Somehow, then they wrap his head, that turpentine in the head, and then wrap it, and the doctor, remember, the doctor is right next door. The doctor is literally right next door, so I'm sure the doctor was there doing most of this, probably sewing him back up, wrapping his head. Apparently Cayce recovered fine. Now he's a 3-year-old. I want to remind everybody he's 3 years old. Apparently Cayce recovered perfectly fine. Again, at 3 years old, he is by this semi-river, semi-lake kind of water. It's not like a rushing river, but it's a little bit, it's a little bit smaller than a lake, so you kind of gotta, and it's bigger than a stream. Water, okay, just water. And this beautiful 3-year-old notices that all these fish got kind of stuck amongst branches, logs that had trapped some fish. So this 3-year-old decides to get in the water to start grabbing the fish by hand to throw them towards, safety. Like, get out of here. You can go this way, go to the bigger area where it's clear so you don't get trapped, right? So this 3-year-old's doing this after a brain injury, by the way, that supposedly healed perfectly fine. He's now in the water, and somehow he trips over these logs and is now drowning. And one of their workers, or one of the workers that was more in town but knew the Cayce family, saw this and rescued the kid. He did drown. So another possible near-death experience. So Cayce now, all by the age of 3, had a gutter of water just pouring on him, most likely more of a near-death experience, before he could even walk. Then something affects the brain tremendously, and then it's backed up again with another near-death experience. I'm not laughing as far as all of this is tragic. All of this is, if I was Carrie, I wouldn't even know what to do. Because you know what? She probably had been telling Lancey to remove that damn fence with that nail in it for God knows how long. I can't imagine if I was the mother of all of this circumstances. But I wanted to talk about this stuff. Lori just said turpentine is still used for that. And I do think I remember my grandparents saying that, but I don't think we had to actually do that. But I will tell you, my husband loves having it in the house for all sorts of reasons. Like, if you want to give my husband a Christmas gift, get him some of that. It's very odd what he thinks. He's a little bit old school. This is all before the age of 3. So let's talk about just the age of 3 for a moment. The age of 3 in child development is really that time where memories do start forming and building. And yes, we can have memories from before that age, but this is when we start really forming more dreams and memories and whatnot that we remember. This is also when we start understanding and kind of knowing that there's a me, there's an I, there's a you, there's a we. Okay, we start understanding our environment, socially, all of it. We start being able to form more cohesive sentences. That part will come up more in the next video about his younger childhood and how he communicated. It's when we start forming, you know, a little bit of our little identity self. We start understanding, oh, this is me. This is I'm here. And our relation to other things, our relation to the world. Like, yes, I'm still too little to reach the top of the counter. Okay, people say, don't touch that hot stove. I might touch it though, just to see. It's where we start exploring things for more identity, because we're understanding there's a self, there's others, there's my mom, there's my dad, there's people, places, and things. And it's when our little memory bank starts using these for more cohesive sentences. We start being able to say, I am, you know, my name is, I am this age, I have siblings, this is where I live. We're able to start using more identifying aspects. That all happens at the age of 3. And we also like to try to pull a little bit away from, you know, our parents. That's the first, like, I'm going to take a few steps away from this tether you have me on. How much can I go? How far can I go before you pull me back? You know, we test our boundaries. You know, it happens at different stages in our development. This is known, and it's been this way for a long time. It's what Cayce would have been doing, right? Hence probably why he fell on a fence in the first place. So, that is what's happening at that time. We're learning our environment. We're understanding there's a self. And this child, who is also using all of his faculties to see, to speak, to learn, to understand, to become who he is, just had severe accidents. So let's talk about that. There is a, you know, I think gifts, quote unquote, like Cayce, I think people can just be born with them. And I think people can develop a lot of them through definitely breath and meditation, and, you know, I do believe so, right? But for though there are a lot out there, and I'm going to include myself in this, there usually was some kind of accident. And then the things that would follow that accident scopes and shapes a lot of what happens with our mind. So, and especially if it happens at the age of 3, I'll talk to you about mine, because I was 3 years old. So a lot of people want to, and I'll explain that in a moment, a lot of people want to focus just on the pineal gland. And I get why. A lot of people want to just focus on that. It is my humble opinion that it's not just the pineal gland that kind of kickstarts things or gives you different abilities. I think it's also the pituitary gland has to be a part of it as well. This is my opinion. Others throughout history have kind of shared the same opinion. the reason why I say that is, and I'm, and I was trying to look to see if I have a picture of the brain that would show it a bit better in some of my brain books, right? But I don't really have one that would be better to show here. So your pituitary gland, it's kind of, back here. It's really hard because it's like you can't see into my brain right now. But it's kind of back here. And your pituitary gland is what helps travel a lot of information in the body. It's what helps your body. It's the gland that's helping a lot of things. A lot of the communication to help you grow, to help you develop physically and mentally. It really is. And then you have the pineal that many want to talk about how that is, maybe that's where the soul consciousness lives. That's where abilities lie. That's where, in my house, everything was referred to as antennas. Courtney, put your antennas down. I will explain that, I guess, now. So, when I was 3 years old, we had just moved. We moved to a new house when I was about 2.5. And in my parents' room, they had just gotten a water bed. If anybody remembers the big water beds, and my dad had actually put I think 3 drawers. He built his own thing, right? He put 3. My dad was also a giant, so he was a very big man, and big people, kind of like what we're doing in my house. If we are capable, we try to build things up to make it easier for us. So what my dad did for his water bed, a very big water bed, was he built 3 drawers underneath it for their clothing because it was so damn big they didn't have room for dressers, and then put the water bed on top, okay? And then going around the sides of this water bed, it had this really nice padding that was kind of leather padding along the wood board to hold the water bed, right? Well, because it was cool and nobody really had anything like this, us kids would like to go onto the water bed. Even if oftentimes we maybe watch a movie or something and whatnot. We just really liked it. I mean, it was kind of cool, right? But what I really enjoyed, not so much the water bed, probably because I don't do water so much, because I have an inner ear problem. That might be a cause to this as well. I didn't, think I had it when I was a kid. But I really enjoyed hanging myself as a 3-year-old on that, padding going around the boards. Just lay there like this, like a sloth. I really like just hanging on the edge of the bed. And one night, my cousins were also on the bed, and they started wanting to jump on the waterbed, right? And I fell. And do understand, that had to been my dad, because of how tall he was, that bed probably was at least 4.5, 5 feet in the air from where I fell. And then I fell very smack down onto very hard, there was no carpet. It was wood flooring, old school wood flooring. And I fell smack down on this side. And I'm little Courtney. I mean, if I did that now, whatever. But I was little Courtney. And I remember it felt, now I know the word vibration, but it felt like my body was jumping up and down, back and forth on that wood. For a child, it felt like minutes. It felt like my whole body and brain were knocking against this wood for minutes upon minutes, and there was nothing I could do. There was no sound coming out, no cry coming out. I was just doing this, right? And that's how hard I hit. And of course, my mother heard, ran upstairs. Even when she scooped me up, I still didn't cry because it took my body a while to stop doing this. It felt like I couldn't talk. I'm sure the air was knocked out of me too. And she rushes me downstairs, and that's when I kind of started crying because everybody saw me. That's when I started crying, like, oh, I'm back to conscious. My mother wanted to take me to the hospital. I ended up not going to the hospital because probably very similar to Edgar's father, my father had a very severe drinking issue as well. And so the rest of the night, my grandmother was there. She held me, and I spent the rest of the night watching a whole lot of insane chaos that I do believe the cops were called. Because my father, I believe, threatened to kill my uncle. I believe. So after this major accident, for a 3-year-old, that I'm sure messed up a lot of my pineal gland and probably maybe triggered, or not my pineal, but my pituitary gland, might have then triggered the pineal gland. I'm watching a lot of chaos unfold. I have a feeling that happened a lot in Cayce's life too, because his father was also a severe drunk, could be very abusive to the wife and the children. So all of a sudden this 3-year-old's having whatever's going on in the brain and then watching massive chaos ensue. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the cops were called that night. So all during that time of going, this is who I am. This is my environment. This is my relation to things. And guys, I don't want you to, this is not to be like, oh, woe is Courtney, because I've shared things here before. This is to, when I started this stuff, I stated, when I start really going into Cayce's life, the parallels between he and I, this is kind of why I truly, I just feel a very nice connection to him. Because the parallels are very, very synced up. To the point as well, post that injury, I also had very near-death experiences. Done differently, but also. So what I'm saying is that there is a lot of people that, and also I do want to say, I love my dad. He's passed now. It's fine. I'm healed. He's healed. Everybody's okay. My mom's okay. But things might be revealed to show the very similarities and show how this changes the brain of individuals. This is right at my informative time, right? And I will let you guys also know, it is very much clear that, because I also, once I was in school, I was starting to be very much tested. I'm sure that will come up as well at some point. Because clearly my pituitary gland, that is what is taking in the information and trying to filter it to my subconscious, to my frontal lobe, to all of it, my pituitary gland definitely does not work the same as others. This is why I read differently. I can guarantee you that. I was actually, the testing that they would start doing with me when I was a child, and eventually my parents immediately stopped it once they realized what testing was really happening. It started because I read and take in, I was taking in information differently. And it's because all of that trauma to the brain and my environment in my development years. I truly believe that. My mother also, she has said throughout the rest of my life from that point, she said, yeah, Courtney, I always wondered if something happened to you that night. Always wondered. It was that big of a fall. And then she also knew what I then sat there and watched. So it's a very interesting layer. And I believe Cayce went through very similar layers like that. That it might not just be the accident, but then what happens after the accident, cause and effects, right? So it's multi-layered. I just wanted to put that out there because I know there's people in this community, I know there's people out there that debate this kind of thing. Do I believe some are just born with stuff, right? I do. Do I believe accidents occur though and do kick things into drive? Yes, I definitely believe that as well. I believe those that have more of a more rare gift like clairvoyance, because you actually need either clairvoyance or very strong clear audience to access the Akashic. It's not like everybody can just, I do believe people can develop those gifts and yes, access the Akashic, but it's not, we're not there yet. And so I do believe those that can, that truly can, maybe I'll pause right there and I want to make this very clear because we're talking about Edgar Cayce. There are a lot of people right now that say that they can access the Akashic. And recently, when I have gone a couple of times recently, I have been, because I know the difference, I will tell you the astral plane has been trying to trick me. But I know the difference in frequency, so I can call it out like that, immediately be like, nope, I'm not doing anything here. The Akashic really, it's a whole different frequency. It is, you could call it the land or the frequency of infinite potentiality. It is vastly, you could call it, you know, the 0 point of creation itself. That is not the astral. I know I've talked about it a lot here at Stars of the Morning Light, but that is not the astral. Nor, I often hear people say, I channel the Akashic. Then that means they're not seeing the Akashic. What they're most likely doing, which is fine, I suppose, depending if they very much understand how it's being processed and there's a lot of trust and very much knowing. What usually that means is that they're actually talking to their guides who are receiving messages from the Akashic and sending it to them. Because there's no, I don't channel the Akashic, that's not a thing. Cayce wasn't channeling the Akashic, that's not a thing. So when you hear little things, and so what they're, like I said, what they're doing is they're probably talking to their guides who are receiving the information from the Akashic. So it's like a telephone, you know, that old game we used to play. So just make note of that those who really truly do this, and oftentimes when we hear of other people throughout history, it was after some kind of near-death or traumatic event. It was something happened that really opened the brain. And I, like I said, am a humble believer that, and it's not just the pineal gland. The pituitary gland has to also be kind of in the mix as to it needs to operate differently. The reason why is because it is what is there to help us see things differently, take things in differently. And that needs to be activated along with the pineal gland to really have that full openness, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. So I did want to make that kind of stuff very clear. And also, the age 3 is usually when kids might start demonstrating that they do have abilities. Oftentimes it's more maybe mediumship. Oftentimes it's, it might be more clear audio. And I stay away from just overcapping things as in the term psychic. or that child is an extreme empath in some capability. You know, emotional empaths are the majority, and some are very, very heightened in that. And so they develop different sensory stuff because of the emotional thing that can also be more of what would be different psychic gifts. I don't like just generalizing all this stuff into the term just psychic. I like actually trying to use the actual terms. So do know that children around that age, because they now can verbalize things, because now they are more aware of their environment and what's in the environment, they will also be capable of demonstrating possible gifts. And it's what we do, hence the first topic we talked about. Was it ever shut down in your family? Was it ever shut down and that cannot be talked about? You do not do that, child. How was it ever received? Because it is usually around that time period. There's different markers in this stuff, and 3 is usually where we start seeing it. So, anyone with grandkids, kids, what have you, think back to when you were a 3-year-old if you can. And did anybody shut down what you were saying? Because in there lies things that probably are now just dormant within you. So that's why I also wanted to bring it up. So the accident thing, my humble opinion about, it's not just the pineal, it's also the pituitary gland. Those two kind of form those who are more capable of going to the Akashic. So, how are we all doing? I know that was a lot to take in, eh? That was a lot to take in. And what's nice about this is we're talking about the secret self as we move into the other book. A lot to take in. So in our other book that we could jump into, so these, yeah, okay, so Lori just said the church. Yeah, my mother went through that, and that's, yeah. My heart goes out to those that happened with. I'm sure, trust me, stories about me and the grandmother of my mother will probably come up, because I did not care. Female, I will say whatever I want. I was raised to do that. Actually, that grandmother, Lori, this is a little another footnote. My parents chose to not baptize me. I was the one grandchild that was not baptized. Baptized Catholic, definitely. I was not baptized at all. My parents purposely chose to not baptize me, so I could grow up and just figure out whatever I wanted to do. My grandmother, because of that, my mother's mother, very hardcore Catholic, I was never treated like the rest. Let's say that. But you know what? I don't care, lady. I don't care. I know who I am. Oh my goodness. Yeah, she and I butt heads a lot. So we in the first one, and we're still working in this book, the Edgar Cayce on secrets of the universe and how to use them in your life. This was written by, well, his son Charles oversaw it, but I'm trying to find another woman actually wrote it. Lynn, so what was said was they compiled a bunch of Cayce's readings and then went, oh, the topic of a lot of this is that, self, or the topic is this, or the topic is that. And then those topics were kind of meshed together, and this is what came out of it. So right now we're just talking about the self. And remember, we started talking last week about the secret self. That is more of your true, your soul, that part that you don't share with other people, and you kind of probably haven't really shared it with yourself. And so you can go back and listen. It was interesting because in that reading, it talked about you, us, individuals, we're good, we're bad, we're this, we're that. I mean, it gave so many, and it posed a question, are you selfish or unselfish? And how difficult that really is to identify. And I will say now that a lot of what was said to me is what you get out of working through codependency issues. Like a lot of those examples, like from the last video, if you asked me for a ride to the doctor, what would be my motive, my why, as to saying yes? Is it because I'm afraid of what you're going to think about me, so I definitely have to say yes? Or is it because I'm going to now expect you to do the same for me when I want it happen? All those kind of variations that make me appear unselfish, like martyrdom, being a martyr, like all of that kind of stuff. Or is it, so I can get you in the car and talk to you about your bad habits? Any of that. Am I appearing to be unselfish when in reality, I'm really selfish? For me personally, because this book was written before codependency really kind of took hold of the understanding of it. So this was copyrighted in 1989. Yes, do people know about codependency in 1989? Yes. But to the amount that we understand that really that mental disease of behavioral habits and thought patterns, no, they did not know what was going on so much in 1989. So a lot of what, for me personally, was being revealed there is, yeah, you got the good, the bad, the ugly, everything living within you. You have to distinguish, are you being selfish or unselfish? That is extremely hard. And for me personally, that extremely hard part is actually a lot of the symptoms of the thought patterns and habits of codependency, which it is now known that pretty much everybody on the planet has some degree of codependent behavior and thought patterns, period, hands down. So I am I'm an advocate for learning about codependency. Read some books, go to some Codependence Anonymous meetings, something, because I do believe everybody's got it in them in some form of degree. What happens though is there's those that were a lot like me that had it in extremes, and so then those that are with those people or know those people, they judge themselves with their degree of codependency against the ones of extremes and go, oh yeah, I'm not that. But I will tell you, as an outsider usually looking at all this stuff, oh yeah, everybody has somewhere a degree on now what would most likely be a spectrum of that going on. So that's why it's the difficulty of, are you actually being selfish or are you unselfish? And the only way you're really going to step out of selfishness and into your true calling person as a soul body is to connect with that secret self. So we are in the next part of that education. I hope everybody's still kind of hanging with me. This was a little bit of a lot to take in. And I thank you for being here. Ooh. Okay, so guidance through discovery of the secret self. Get a pencil and paper. Ask 3 questions. You don't have to do that right now. Just listen to me, and then go back and you can do it. So, these are the 3 questions that they're stating here. What did I come here to do? Why do I need to do that? How do I go about doing it? So I will tell you, everyone right now, a whole bunch of times when somebody first gets an Akashic reading from me, like their first question is, what is my purpose? And I might have said this before. What is my purpose? I will tell you, the Akashic will always reply with, to love. They go, just tell him, Courtney, to love. How that looks for each individual is different. And that's why we talk about this secret self here. Because the secret self, the soul, the flame, as we like to say here, your star consciousness here at Stars of the Morning Light, knows exactly why you did, what you should be doing with it, what's going on with you. So when I do a reading, if you are out there wondering, what is my purpose? The immediate reaction and answer is to love. All the details, though, you do actually know. I probably shouldn't pitch it that way because then nobody would need my services. But you do know. So, what did I come here to do? Why do I need to do that? How do I go about doing it? I'm going to continue reading. Begin where you are. You can't get someplace unless you begin here. Write the question, what did I come here to do? Take a deep breath, and from a space between breathing in and breathing out, begin to write. Don't censor, judge, or evaluate. Just write. Feeling resistance in writing. I have a question mark there. Like, do you feel resistance in writing? That's your subconscious feeling threatened. If you give in, it will keep you. If you give in, it will keep you in its grip. The particular thing about the subconscious mind is that it seems to be rendered inoperative from the space between breathing in and breathing out. It feels as though you've drawn a curtain that covers it, at the same time reveals the soul's mind. So they are going to go into how the subconscious is going to kind of lie to you. And I know everybody went, whoa, what? Do you remember this was written in 1989, but I also know what they're talking about. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. But what they're saying is that space between breathing in, pausing, exhaling, strips away any of that ego-ish, lying to oneself, confusion, the veil of secret self to known self, as we learned last week. The known self is who goes to work, who shows up at parties, who usually is talking amongst each other. That's your known self. How people known you, how you probably have known yourself. The secret self is that part inside, your soul self, your soul mind, consciousness. So they're saying when you breathe in, pause, exhale, in that pause kind of renders all that other stuff, ego, subconscious, all the stuff that might want to trick you, it renders it inoperable. And that's where you write. You breathe in, you say, what did I come here to do? What did I come here to do? You breathe in. I hope you all are still with me. I apologize, my computer did something very odd. So I'm going to keep going. If it does that again, okay. Thank you. Okay. See what happens when I'm teaching people how to connect? I all of a sudden lose connection? Okay, I'm going to keep reading. Wow. Your answer may take the form of 40 pages of unleashed passion, or it may consist of 3 words such as to know myself. In that case, the question then is, who is me? So pose that question and answer it, again, from the space between breathing in and breathing out. In fact, all self-knowledge writing should be carried out from this space, simply because it's the most effective. You can trust information from this space to be relevant. If you allow the subconscious and conscious minds to get into act, you'll never wear out your hand and wind up with little more than excuses and rationalizations why you aren't living your purpose and getting guidance from your soul. So they're saying, in that pause of breathing, your subconscious and conscious mind work together. There is no lying when you start writing in that moment. There is no confusion. There is no rationalizations. There is no excuses. It's very clear. After getting the answer to the first question, ask, why do I need to do that? Breathe deeply and let flow the first thing that comes to mind. Don't be concerned with how the words read. Let your soul find its own voice. Don't try to manipulate the words to fit someone else's norm. Trying to fit someone else's norm is probably part of your problem, so let that all go. Then ask, how do I go about doing it? Again, breathe deeply and without qualifying anything, write the answer. If your life isn't working, it may come in the form of, read that book over there on the shelf. Something very simple. That still happens with me a lot of times. Hey, Courtney, you need to take some quiet time. Read that over there. You need to meditate. Like, very simple. It can be, because that's where you start, wherever you're at. However, if your life is working, you may get something like, just keep on going. You're heading in the right direction. Which isn't that lovely when you get that answer? Mostly our lives work in some areas, but not in others. So you may want to apply the questions to specific areas most unsatisfying. It's perfectly okay to start in one particular area rather than generalize about your whole life. After all, the purpose here is guidance where you need it most through discovery of the secret self. Keep your questions positive, such as, why am I in this relationship? Or, why am I in this job? Don't ask, why don't things ever work out in the way I want it to? Oh my goodness. Your subconscious will, I guarantee, bash you to smithereens if you do it that way. If you put a negative, why is everything never working out for me? Yeah, your subconscious will come in and tear you to shreds. Or worse still, the subconscious will hand you answers such as, it's all so-and-so's fault. If it weren't for him or her, that, I guess I'm going to pause there for a moment. So your subconscious Because a lot of that sounds like ego, doesn't it? You know, if we asked, why does my life not work out for me? It's how they're referring, it sounds to us in today's age, that would be the ego responding, oh, it's so-and-so's fault. Oh, because, you know, you're lazy. What are, you know, right? It would be some kind of bashing. They are referring to the subconscious here. Isn't that interesting? That just 30 years later, if this was written today, it'd be more ego. When she was compiling from all of Cayce's stuff, who was saying subconscious. Very interesting. He does have stuff on the ego, though. So, the reason they're saying that is our subconscious, and this is why I also brought up the pituitary gland. Our subconscious is a fascinating aspect of us humans. It is taking in everything all the time. Our conscious mind, you know, that reads, writes, does our jobs for us, our conscious mind gets filtered from our frontal lobe, where the feeling of the meaning of things is. So that feeling of the meaning in our prefrontal cortex, the frontal lobe, that feeling of the meaning of things filters through all that we see, all the subliminal messages, all the advertising, all of the social media, all of the news networks. It filters through based on the feeling of the meaning of things that is for that individual. Our subconscious mind does not do that. Our subconscious mind is taking in everything all the time. You're driving down the street, all those billboards, it's taking in that we just don't even pay attention to because we've driven down that street a million times. Your subconscious is still taking it in. Every time you're scrolling, and you're just scrolling fast and fast and fast, just scrolling through, your subconscious is still taking that all in. So the reason they're saying your subconscious might tell you a bunch of rubbish or badger you is because your subconscious mind actually is releasing and sorting through all that junk and garble all the time, and very much while we're sleeping. Very much when we're sleeping. That's why dreams often can just be dreams, because it's the subconscious getting rid of the junk. It's just dumping the junk. So our subconscious is always trying to release that stuff. And if it's something that we do need, or something that was buried that needs to be presented, it will present it, right? The subconscious is working very hard all the time. This is what it does. And thank goodness it does, because I could not imagine if my conscious mind had to truly absorb all that is present for us to absorb. We would all be loony. And we think we're loony now because of it. Imagine if we didn't have our subconscious. That is infinitely larger than our actual consciousness. So, being said, the reason they're saying this, and the breathing in, pausing, get the answer in that pause, exhaling, start the writing in that process, is because in that pause, it's the subconscious and conscious connecting, going, this is what you truly do need to know. Not the garbage that's always in the subconscious, that the subconscious might go, yeah, you're here to, X, Y, and Z, and it has nothing to do with it. It's because it's actually it's just in the middle of filtering that stuff. That's why we have to take that pause, that breath, so the two can interact. So it's not actually the ego, but in today's world, they would be like, oh, they're referencing the ego. No, the subconscious has a lot going on all the time, and you can't just say, knock, knock, what's the answer? You have to connect all things to get the actual right answer. That's what they're trying to explain here. I hope that helped people. The subconscious is a very unique thing, and that's also why the pituitary gland So people that might have injured that, or it's not working the same as others. That also means all that stuff that they're taking into their consciousness and their subconscious is also really not being filtered the same. It's not being taken in the same. So all parts of their subconscious, conscious, even the feeling of the meaning of things in their prefrontal cortex is not working as others. And I also want to emphasize the prefrontal cortex is also where, you have your serotonin, your dopamine. This is where we know those who are ADD or ADHD or other, aspects of self, maybe somewhere on the spectrum of things. There's stuff going on there that also filters things differently. So in today's world, where they've now, I think it was a psychology magazine from, I think that was like 2017, like Psychology Today, I think, magazine from 2017. They are deciding that pretty much, I believe, everyone born after 1979 is somewhere on the spectrum. And everything on that spectrum now does include ADHD, ADD, even codependency issues, because now they are certain that some parts of codependency is also related to OCD. OCD's on that spectrum. Everything's on the spectrum. So if you were born after 1979, there is something going on in the brain that maybe doesn't work the same as the person next to you. That is beautiful, that is fine, but we have to understand ourselves and work with things, not against things, and the subconscious can help also with that. That was a very long tangent on the brain. Sorry, I apologize for that. I do love talking about the brain. Anyways, whew. Okay, I have to look to see even where I was. All right. Okay, I'm just going to go back. Then ask, how do I go about doing it? Again, breathe deeply and without qualifying, write the answer. If your life isn't working, it may come in the form of, read that book over there on the shelf. However, if your life is working, you may get something like, just keep keeping on. You're headed in the right direction. Mostly our lives work in some areas, but not in others. So you may want to apply the questions to specific areas most unsatisfying. It's perfectly okay to start in one particular area rather than generalize about your whole life. After all, the purpose here is guidance where you need it the most through discovery of the secret self. Keep your questions positive, such as, why am I in this relationship? Or why am I in this job? Don't ask, why doesn't anything ever work out the way I want it to? Your subconscious will, I guarantee, bash you into smithereens. Or, worse still, the subconscious will hand you answers such as, it's so-and-so's fault, if it weren't for him or her. If self-knowledge writing is carried out in the right way, your soul will speak to you of its need to have its life. Your soul is waiting its turn to guide you. So if you do this exercise in the right way, your soul's going to speak to you. It's been waiting. The point is, however, to do whatever the answer says, because it's works, not words, that gets the job done. Following soul guidance results in having more inner guidance, more communication from your soul. Step by step, the path you must take that stretches before you. It may lead you into small group work, various therapies and recovery programs, church, prayer, meditation, volunteer work, and on, bringing you to the right people, places, things, and events that will lead you into living your purpose. When you're living your purpose, you're living your ideal. It's easier to live what if you know the why. So I often actually talk about this a lot. We can get downloads, we can actually be told what to do. But it is actually in us to maybe not do it. We're kind of fighters at heart, especially Americans. We're kind of rebels without a cause, right? It's very hard to actually get the process of going or doing. You know, yes, I'm going to follow through. I'm going to take that book down and start reading it. But what happens, because it's not just you will start aligning yourself with people, places, and things that are meant to be there to help you on your journey. It's also building the self-trust. Now you're showing up for yourself. Oh, secret soul, you just told me to do this. My conscious self is going to follow through so I can have that experience. And the more I do that, the more you build self-trust. And self-trust is needed to carry out your purpose. The secret self's ideal is not a list of shoulds and oughts. It is your motivator. No one can tell you what that is. Some have found that establishing a theme for life leads to a clearer focus on the secret self's ideal. Certain words or phrases help define the theme. This unifying or dominant idea can help you live the ideal. It's never too late to start. No matter what your thinking, your environment have been, you can begin where you are to let that work for you instead of against you. I have to take a drink of water, guys. I apologize. And I want to tell everyone, I do this theme. I do this before I even knew anything about this. It's just what I do. So I clearly was onto something. It does make it a whole lot easier, because if you start losing your way, if you start getting jumbled in the day-to-day, it's the theme that can bring you back to your ideal. Okay? One way to look at themes and keep them sorted by ideals and purposes is to see themes as I am statements. Yay! I am statements. I love it. The theme of your life does not necessarily concern your occupation, though it may. Probably the theme can be stated abstractly. Oh, geez. I'm starting to lose the voice a little bit. If, for example, you choose as a theme, I am an enhancer of beauty, your occupation might be bookkeeper, but your hobby, gardening. Okay? Certainly a person who chooses a career of, say, hairstyling, who thinks of herself or himself as an enhancer of beauty, would be living a type of joyous oneness daily, meaning they're working their joy. If you're retired or otherwise unemployed, the theme can follow your interests and could be expressed simply as I am helpful. But I am statements don't specify the what, the why, and how to. Stay with the hairstylist for a moment to see the whole picture. The theme, I am an enhancer of beauty. The purpose, the what. My purpose for being born is to help others express their own individual beauty. Right? So the I am statement is, I am an enhancer of beauty. The purpose then is, the purpose of being born is to help others express their own individual beauty. I do that as a hairstylist. So let's keep going. The secret self's ideal, the why, is creative service. With the ideal of creative service, the how would naturally extend to other areas of life, not limit itself just to job. Creative service is a form of unselfishness. A person living creative service as an ideal looks for ways to serve creatively. This person would not only drive you to the doctor, but would deliberately lay aside her own cares and thinks of ways to make you laugh during the trip. Sorry, I just thought of someone. She would value greatly those few hours spent with you and would be grateful you asked for her help. Her soul wants to guide you away from selfishness. The secret self's ideals always involve some type of unselfish service to others. We can all think of people who never seem to give a thought to spiritual development, but who are the most loving servants on earth? The blessed ones happily living outer directed lives of service, totally unaware of a spiritual ideal. Maybe they know a secret the rest of us don't know, but we can learn. I do want to say, those are the people that might be in your life that if they know you're having a crappy time, they'll call you before work and make you laugh a lot. Or they'll send you, well, in today's world, it'd be like really cute memes and make you laugh a lot, or really listen to you. It's a form of service. Even when we are almost totally inner focused, such as when we are overcoming addictions, cleaning up our own acts as an act of service to others, seeing ourselves as others see us, then making corrections is a service. I'll talk about that in a minute. When I make myself better, for whatever reason, you benefit, and vice versa. It's virtually impossible to help yourself without helping someone else. Key. That's a big ding ding. I hope everybody heard that. Ring my bell. I'm going to read that again. It is virtually impossible to help yourself without helping someone else. When I recognize my purpose for being here, I help you to see yours. Whether I use words such as unselfish creative service or to be more like Christ consciousness. If I'm living it, not just talking about it, you can see it. If I only talk about it, I sound like a child banging on a garbage can with a hammer. I have to be it. If you can see it in someone else, that means you have it in yourself. Woo. For you are nothing if not mirrors of the secret self for one another. Guys, my voice might not make it all the way through, so I think I am actually going to end on that. On the whole service to self, and I just got done talking about, or service to others is actually servicing yourself. But I also just got done talking about the whole codependent stuff, which has a lot of martyr issues in there, which is I do and I do and I do for so many people, and they're not even appreciative, and I do it to look at me, look at all this stuff that I do for people. That is not service. That is not service. And what they were referencing there, for let's say you're cleaning up your life. You're healing in some way. It could be from addiction. It could be from other aspects. Whatever we're kind of healing up. One of the aspects that really should be in place, you could be going to a church to gain spiritual development and healing that way. And that church will then go start doing service here. It could be a recovery program from Alcoholics Anonymous to Narcotics Anonymous to Codependence Anonymous to all of it, to Al-Anon. It could be any of those kind of 12-step programs, eating disorder ones. All of the 12-step programs originally come off of Alcoholics Anonymous, by the way. all of those, they have um, the service to others in there. It's a part of their code. And they say, start doing service. But I will tell you, because I was in those programs. I started out in AA, and then I realized that really wasn't my problem. I was a really bad codependent. I was blaming everybody else for my crappy life that made me drink a lot. Yeah, a lot of people pissed me off. That was my problem. So then I really delved deep into my codependent issues, which I've stated here before. I have no problem saying it. And this was now, I don't know, close to like 15, 17 years ago. I don't even know how long. It's been a while. Service to others is a part of that. But out of what I have experienced is a whole lot of those people then turn that service into, look at me, look at me, look at me. Look at how much service I'm doing. Look at how great I am. Even if they will deny that to your face, because they are actually not recovering. They're not delving deep. That's still an ego, selfish-based behavior. They're just flipping one addiction over to the other. When it is true service to others, it is those small gestures. It is even maybe a role of service. And I will tell you, in today's world, people will always believe that that's actually on the onset not really what's happening. They will not believe you. They will believe that you're doing it for some other reason. But true service to others, you do because you want to, and because you also know it helps you. It's not for the show. It is doing that act as if no eyes were looking. But you also understand that it helps you. So let's use that example that I used just a minute ago. That person that, if they know you're kind of in a bad spot, mentally, emotionally, what have you, physically, they might call you and, help you laugh. Just laughter. They might, yes, come and pick you up so you can spend quality time together just for, because it's good for both of you. They might send a card in the mail just to brighten your day. It's not anything that anybody else has seen. It's not, but what most people don't know, they're doing that with a lot of people. They're doing that not just with one person. They're sharing it. They're spreading those little things out to everyone. It's that phone call, it's that card, it's that, hey, I'm thinking about you. It's let's go get lunch. It's, hey, I got extra food this week. Do you want some? It's anything like that. It's anything like that. That they are not expecting anything in return. They're just there, kind of brightening up the moment, the day, what's going on. But they also are receiving. They also know that things energetically wise, it's reciprocity, it's reciprocal, it's rhythm. So I will tell you, I will speak for myself. I am that person, but it's because I also did a lot of work on myself. Lots of work on myself to make sure I'm not doing it out of martyrism. I'm not doing it out of... now I will say in the last video, I did say that yes, I occasionally still if I should be doing something over here, my responsibilities, because I know I'm only responsible for what I'm responsible for, I do acknowledge that. But I will, if somebody needs something done and I kind of want to avoid my responsibilities, yeah, I'll jump over there and help out. I do admit, I still do that. And I see it as oh, this is my break time. Not so much I'm helping. This is oh, this is my break time. And I'm not even conscious of if they're seeing it as help or not. It's fine. But I do that. But in all other respects, when I go to help or I do a gesture or this and that, I'm seeing it as I'm helping them, but I'm also helping me. If I call somebody in the morning with my morning coffee because I know they're not doing the best, but then I'm cracking jokes. I'm cracking because guys, I'm actually very funny, and if you hang out with me, cracking jokes, changing their mood. I'm actually changing as well. I just changed the vibes of my day. We're changing, right? It's that little thing. It's that kind of stuff. It's not the big, grandiose, let me write you a big check, or let me come and do this, and let me do that, and look at me, look at how great I am. It's all the little things. It's all the little stuff. And somebody that sincerely does that with not selfishness, knowing that we're all connected, knowing how energy works, they're doing it for the other person, but they do also understand that it's helpful for them too. It helps change the energy all around. So it's not really selfish, it's more understanding energy. And if there is no, especially afterwards, hey, I've been calling you for the past week for, and making you feel better. Now it's my turn. Nothing like that. The thought doesn't even come into people's heads, or it shouldn't. But many times over, because people have not healed as much as they need to, in all sorts of these recovery or spiritual communities, it's often service to others as a part of it, but it's often not used well from those who are learning how it helps them and others. It's often very tricky for them, and also, I want to put it out there, it also becomes very manipulated from those who might be on the top tier of whatever those groups are. And it could be from any of those groups, recovery, religious, any of it. They often use service for others in a way to just get work done. So we need to be conscious of how this really works and where it's coming from within you, and how it's being presented from those you might be around. So I will leave on that note, because this is life skills. I believe we just covered a lot of things from, hey, if you got any 3-year-olds around, just watch what they're doing. From my opinion on both the pineal and the pituitary gland are kind of big components as to grander, I shouldn't even say grander, that's not the right word, more capability that Edgar had and others out there, to the influence of the environment on those that have gifts. From, once again, was it shut down by someone when you were around 3 or that age or so, and to our environment shapes all of the brain, to the secret self. Write those questions out. Breathe in, pause, start writing, exhale. All of that to come to really service to others. Because I will tell you, when the Akashic says, go ahead, Courtney, tell them, whenever somebody asks me, what's my purpose? And the Akashic is like, go ahead and tell them. The answer is always to love. The how that looks for everyone is different, but that how is always service to others. Always. In what capacity? And it's not like you can't get paid for your service. There is reciprocity. But in that capacity, it is always a service to humanity, the planet, to others, beings, animals, whatever it may be. It is a service to others. So the very overcap of your purpose is love. Period. Love. Service to others, though, is in that ideal. It is. So the more you can understand what that is, the more you can start living that. And it's not as easy at first, because like I said, service to others gets a little tricky. I love you all. We will be back again on Wednesday for the Edgar Cayce Life Skills Study, usually at 2 o'clock, but I have something happening at 2 o'clock, and so that's why I also have to leave you all. Thank you for listening. If you're new here to Stars of Morning Light, if you just happen to come across this because it was like, oh, Edgar Cayce, hang out with us. This is a great community. Hit that like button. Please, smash the like button and ring my bell, because I'm noticing a lot of the ringing of my bell is starting to disappear again. So please ring my bell so you're notified, and it helps with me. And also, I just want to remind everybody I will not be here this Sunday because I'm teaching a 2-day in-person workshop. So the weekly message that's normally on Sunday is going to be actually done this Friday at 11 a.m. So I appreciate you all. Until we see each other on Friday, namaste, beloveds. I bow to all of you. Have a good one, guys.